When I lost my job, my in-laws invited me for dinner, just to humiliate me. She's going to end up feeding you like a pet, my mother-in-law said. Should we buy you a leash? Everyone laughed. I said quietly, don't worry. I'll be the one feeding you soon. They didn't know about the letter in my pocket, or the signature that would change everything. My name's Mark. I'm 41. I live in Lawrence, Kansas. Or I did. A lot has changed since that night. I worked in supply chain logistics for a mid-sized manufacturing firm out in Topeka. Been there 11 years. Stable. Quiet. Made enough to support my wife, Jenna, and our 2 kids. We weren't rich, but we were good. Or at least I thought so. Then the company folded. Just like that. No severance. No warning. The CEO cleaned house and walked away with a bonus. I walked away with a box and a final paycheck that barely covered the mortgage. I told Jenna that night. She cried, but she said we'd get through it. I believed her. 3 days later, we got a call from her parents, Ron and Mary Ann. They said they wanted to check in, maybe have us over for dinner. I should have known better. They never liked me. Said I married up. Said I wasn't driven enough. Ron owns 3 auto dealerships in Kansas City. Mary Ann's the type who orders for everyone at restaurants and brags about using Botox as preventative medicine. Still, we went. Jenna wanted to. She said they were trying. The dinner was set up like an ambush. Everyone was there. Her sister Tessa, her brother-in-law Doug, even their creepy cousin Neil who sells knives door to door. I sat down, already feeling like I didn't belong. It started with the wine. Ron poured me half a glass and smirked. Just enough for the unemployed man. Everyone chuckled. Jenna froze. Then came the jabs. Tessa asked if I'd be applying for food stamps or just starting an Etsy for failure. Doug offered to help me fill out job applications at Burger King, and Marianne laughed so hard she nearly spit out her salad. I looked at Jenna. She said nothing. Then Marianne leaned across the table and said the thing I'll never forget. She's going to end up feeding you like a pet, she said. Should we buy you a leash? Everyone laughed. It was loud, ugly. They laughed like I wasn't even there. I just sat there for a moment, staring at the table. My hands were in my lap. My stomach was clenched so tight I thought I might throw up. Then I reached into my coat pocket and touched the envelope. I didn't take it out yet. I just let my fingers rest on it. Let the paper remind me that none of them knew what I knew. I said, quiet and flat, don't worry. I'll be the one feeding you soon. That shut them up. The laughter stopped. Jenna turned and looked at me, confused. Tessa scoffed. What's that supposed to mean? I stood up. I think we're done here, I said. Thanks for dinner. Jenna followed me out. We didn't speak until we got in the car. What was that about? She said. Mark, they were joking. No, I said. They were humiliating me. And you just sat there. I didn't know what to say. You said nothing. That's what you said. We drove home in silence. When we got there, I finally pulled out the letter. It was from Jenna's grandfather. See, 2 years before, her grandfather, Walter, a quiet old man who owned a farm in Eudora, started calling me for help with things. Moving equipment, fixing a broken fence. He liked me. We talked about life, about family, about how he didn't trust Ron or Mary Ann with anything that had roots in the ground. The letter was his will. He died 6 days before I lost my job. Sudden stroke. Funeral was small. Jenna cried. Her parents didn't. They just kept asking about the will. And I never told them. Because Walter left everything, the land, the equipment, the money, the mineral rights, to me. Not Jenna. To me. He wrote, Mark is the only man in this family who treats people with dignity and works with his hands. He'll take care of the land. The rest of them would sell it for scrap. It wasn't just a field. It was 86 acres of prime land near the new highway bypass. Developers had been circling it for years. That land was worth millions, and I owned it. I had the deed. The will had just been signed and recorded that morning. My name on every page. That was the letter in my pocket when Mary Ann called me a pet. I didn't tell Jenna right away. Not that night. I needed time to think. I needed space to figure out what this meant, not just for me, but for our marriage. Because truthfully, I wasn't sure what we were anymore. She didn't defend me at dinner. She let them humiliate me, then brushed it off. And that wasn't the first time. But I waited. I spent the next few days driving out to the property, walking the land, sitting in the barn Walter built with his own hands. I read the will 5 times over, then once more, just to be sure. It was airtight. Then the call started. Ron called Jenna first. "We need to talk about Dad's property," he said. "You and your sister should get your fair share." I watched her eyes widen as she talked to him in the kitchen. She turned to me after and said, "Do you know anything about this?" I just shrugged. No idea what he's talking about. I could see something flicker in her eyes. Doubt or fear. But she didn't ask again. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail. A formal request from Ron's attorney, demanding information about Walter's estate. He believed there had been a mistake in the filing, that it was impossible his daughters were left with nothing. I laughed. I drove the letter straight to Walter's probate attorney, a man named Stuart Reinhardt. Real old school guy. Wore the same suit every day. Didn't blink much. He read the letter and said, "They're going to come at you hard, but they won't win." Walter was specific. I nodded. "I'm counting on it." The next day, Jenna found the documents. I'd left them in my desk drawer, careless, maybe, but part of me wanted her to find them. She came into the garage where I was working on the old tractor and slammed them down on the hood. "You lied to me," she said. "No, I just didn't tell you. You let me think you were broke, that we were in this together. You let me get torn apart at that table." She blinked. "What are you talking about?" "You sat there while they mocked me. Called me a pet. Laughed in my face. It was just jokes, Mark. They don't respect me, Jenna. And you don't either." She froze. I could see it then, clear as day. The shift. The panic. She realized this wasn't just about money. It was about power. For once in her life, she didn't hold the cards. "I'm your wife," she said, quiet now. "Don't shut me out." I looked at her for a long time. "You already did." She left and stayed the night at her sister's. I didn't call her. 2 days later, Ron showed up at the farm. He pulled up in his oversized truck, stepped out wearing polished loafers, and smiled like we were old friends. "Mark," he said, arms out. "Glad we could talk like men." I said nothing. "I don't want to make this complicated," he went on. "That land's been in our family a long time. It should stay that way. I'm willing to buy it off you, fair price. We can work something out that benefits everyone." I nodded. "How much?" He grinned. "Well, I had a guy look into it. Given the location, zoning issues, floodplain concerns, maybe 700,000. I smiled. That land had been valued at over $2.8 million. "Make it $5 million, I said. His face dropped. "That's robbery." "No," I said. "That's karma." He glared at me. "You think you're better than us now?" "No, I've always been better than you. You're just noticing." He turned red. "You'll regret this." "I don't think I will." He got in his truck and peeled off. A week later, the smear campaign began. Suddenly, I was being served notices, allegations of forgery, questions about Walter's mental state before he signed the will. Jenna's cousin Neil even filed a claim saying I coerced Walter into writing it while he was on medication. I was called a gold digger, a fraud, a grifter with dirt under his nails. It made the local paper. Twice. People in town started whispering. Even some of the developers backed off. But I didn't fold, because what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that Walter recorded everything. Every conversation about the will. Every comment Ron made about tearing down that damn barn and building condos. Every insult Marianne threw behind his back. He left me his land, but he also left me his insurance. A flash drive, labeled, just in case. I found the flash drive 2 weeks after the smear campaign started. It was taped under Walter's workbench, the one in the corner of the barn he never let anyone touch. It was wrapped in a folded grocery bag and sealed with 2 strips of duct tape. A sticky note on top, in his handwriting, said, "Play if they come sniffing." I drove straight home, plugged it into my laptop, and sat at the kitchen table while the files loaded. There were audio recordings. Video too. Date stamped. Clear. The first one I opened was labeled Ron_Jan_22. Walter's voice came through, steady and clear. "Say that again, Ron." "About the land." Ron's voice was cocky. "Sell it. Put in a storage unit business or something. Who the hell needs 86 acres of dead corn?" "Walter." "And the barn?" Ron laughed. "Burn it. Or charge some hipsters to take pictures in front of it." Next file was Marian_February_19. Walter, why don't you want Mark to have a land? Marianne, because he's not one of us. Walter, he's just a worker. You give him that land, and he'll sit on it like a dog with a bone. Walter, maybe that's what this family needs. A dog with a bone. That one hit me hard, but also gave me what I needed. Proof, motive, and the nail for their legal coffin. I drove the flash drive to Stuart Reinhardt's office the next morning. He sat at his desk, listening through a pair of bulky headphones. He didn't smile, didn't move, just nodded slowly, over and over. When it ended, he took off the headphones and said, "They're done." "You sure?" He leaned back. "They keep pushing, we'll take this to court. This gets played in front of judge, and they'll be lucky to walk away with their reputations intact, let alone a dime." He gave me the next steps, told me to sit tight, let him handle the heat. I wish that had been the end, but it wasn't. The next day, Jenna came back. I opened the door, and she was standing there with a duffel bag and red eyes. "I'm sorry," she said. I let her in. She sat at the kitchen table, looking small. The same table where I'd first heard her mother call me a pet. "I didn't know they were doing all this," she said. "The lawyer stuff. The articles. You didn't know?" I asked. "Or you just didn't ask?" She swallowed. "I didn't know where to stand." "You stood with them." She looked down. "I told them to stop. I told them this was your land, that they were making it worse. And what did they say? That I'd regret taking your side." I leaned on the counter, staring at her. "Why are you really here, Jenna?" She hesitated, then said it. "I'm pregnant." The world stopped spinning for a second. Everything I'd been planning, all the revenge, the control, the land, it all crashed into a wall. I stared at her. "Is it mine?" Her eyes widened. "What?" I'm asking. She stood up, angry now. "Of course it is. What kind of question is that?" I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure if I believed her. And she could see it. "You think I'd cheat on you?" she asked, voice shaking. I said nothing, and she broke. "You know what? Screw you. I came here because I thought we could fix this. I thought maybe there was still something left." She grabbed her bag and walked toward the door. Then she stopped. "You want revenge, Mark? Fine. But be careful how much of yourself you burn down trying to get it." She left. I didn't chase her. Instead, I went back to the farm. I had calls to make, because I had a plan. If Ron and Marianne wanted to fight dirty, I could fight smarter. I met with a man named Bruce Holloway, a local real estate developer who'd been circling that land for years. But he didn't want it for commercial. He wanted to turn it into a conservation zone, eco-preserve, trails, some education buildings for schools. He didn't want strip malls. He offered me $3.2 million. Cash. But more than that, he offered me something better, naming rights. I said yes. And in 2 weeks, the contracts were signed. The sale recorded. The land officially transferred to the Holloway Conservation Project. The press release went out the next morning. Mark Granger donates 86 acres of family land to Educational Conservation Trust. Rejects commercial developers. With photos of me, alone. No mention of Jenna, or Ron, or Marianne. And the name of the land? Walter's Rest. I made sure they saw it. They were everywhere. News sites, social media, even on the evening news. I didn't even have to say anything. The silence did the work for me. But the best was yet to come. Because Ron's dealership, it had just been quietly using that land for overflow storage, trailers, trucks, even some illegal dumping. They thought the land would stay in the family, that I wouldn't mind. But now it was public and protected, and Bruce was pressing charges. Bruce's legal team didn't waste time. He hired a private investigator who took drone photos of Ron's vehicles stored illegally on the conservation land. There were fuel drums, old tires, even a dump pile with stripped auto parts. Within a week, the city slapped Ron with environmental violations. Fines stacked up, over $60,000 just for the fuel leak alone. The state got involved. News cameras showed up outside his dealership. Protesters held up signs, "Keep our trails clean, respect Walter's land, corporate trash out." His business took a dive. Then came the lawsuit, trespassing, illegal dumping, zoning violations. Bruce wasn't bluffing. He dragged Ron through court, one charge at a time. He didn't want a payout. He wanted a public takedown. And that's exactly what he got. Jenna tried to stay out of it, but her parents pulled her in. Marianne cornered her at a family birthday and said, "You need to get your husband in line. This is embarrassing." Jenna told her to back off. It was the first time she'd ever stood up to her mom. She told me that night when she came over to drop off some old books I'd left behind. We sat at the kitchen table, the one where she used to braid our daughter's hair while I made coffee. There was silence for a while. Then she said, "I think we should separate." I nodded. She didn't cry. She just sat there, staring at her hands. I don't think I ever really saw what they were like. My family, until I watched them come after you. And now, I asked. Now I see it, and I don't know how to live with it. "You don't have to," I said. We agreed on a separation. No shouting, no lawyers, just a clean break. I moved back to the farm, the caretaker's house, while she stayed in town with the kids. We didn't fight, but something had cracked between us that never healed. The baby she told me about, she lost it. Stress, the doctor said. Not her fault, but I think the guilt hit her harder than she let on. She went quiet after that. Stopped returning texts. I saw her at school pickup once, and she looked right through me. The kids took it harder, especially our son, Drew. He was 11, old enough to know something was wrong, but not enough to understand why. He didn't speak to me for weeks after the separation. I sent him letters, left him notes in his backpack. He ignored them. Then one day, he showed up at the barn, just walked in like he owned the place. "Grandpa said you fixed the tractor," he said. "Yeah," I said. "You want to see it?" He nodded. We spent the whole afternoon rebuilding the fuel line. Didn't talk much, but when I dropped him off at home, he looked back and said, "Can I come next weekend?" That's how we started over. One weekend at a time. Ron's business never recovered. One dealership shut down, then another. By the end of the year, only his flagship was open and barely hanging on. Marion started seeing a therapist after the press storm. She told people she had anxiety attacks from the trauma of betrayal, but everyone knew the truth. She lost her standing in her church group. Her charity board removed her. Nobody likes being associated with someone who dumped car batteries on protected land. Tessa filed bankruptcy after her boutique went under. Turns out, she took a loan from Ron based on a land deal that never happened. The land he thought he'd inherit. When it fell through, so did her credit. Jenna moved in with her sister briefly, but left after one too many fights. She ended up renting a small 2-bedroom apartment and went back to teaching part-time. She sent me a letter a few months later. It said, "You were right. I didn't protect you. I let them laugh at you, and I regret it every day. I miss who we were before all of this. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope one day the kids will see you for who you really are." I still keep that letter in my desk. Walter's Rest officially opened the next spring. There's a trail named after him, with a sign at the entrance that says, "Donated in memory of Walter Avery by the man he trusted most." They held a small ceremony. Bruce asked me to say a few words. I kept it simple. Walter believed in working with your hands and keeping your word. That's all I'm trying to do. After the crowd left, I sat on the old porch where Walter and he used to watch the sun go down. Drew sat beside me, legs swinging off the edge. He said, "You really own all this?" I nodded. "But you gave it away." "Not gave," I said. "Protected." He thought for a minute. "Did it make you feel better?" "Not right away," I said. "But now?" "Yeah, it does." He leaned his head on my arm and said, "They don't talk about you anymore. Grandma and Grandpa. They just act like you don't exist." I smiled. Good, because that's how I won. Not by yelling, not by punching back, but by staying silent and letting them drown in the mess they made. They thought I was a pet, but in the end, they were the ones begging for scraps. And I never fed them again.